two important aspects of where we go from here to make things more workable and more equitable for people with disabilities are like getting the services more under Medicare or health insurance than under human services and Medicaid. And the other is really having a coordinating office that can help mesh together all the services available from different agencies and entities and things. So those are two important steps that need to be taken. Another important step that I've advocated for and considered would really be a change to the way that Social Security determines the level of benefits for disability insurance benefits it pays. Because, there are 25 million Americans who are on Social Security disability living below the poverty level, almost half of people with disabilities. And that's not right. I get $750 a month on this. I get $650 a month on Social Security disability and something like $99 a month on SSI. $750 a month. That's a third below poverty level. And that that by actually bringing people with disabilities up to a support payment level, a poverty level, $1,200 a month, would mean that they would make it much easier to pay for things, provide for myself just out of that insurance, that Social Security disability insurance benefit, rather than having to go apply to all these different programs for this assistance or that assistance. It makes it so that the person can actually, with the disability insurance support they're getting, actually be able to kind of keep the safety net there, and so I think that there needs to be a different way that they determine their benefit levels at Social Security, rather than basing disability payments, figuring them out the same way that they figure out Social Security retirement payments, because I think doing them both the same way is really a disservice and doesn't really recognize the additional needs of people with disabilities beyond having a retirement supplement. It's not being disabled is not summer camp. It's not retirement. And but the other thing I mentioned, we talked about before, was public awareness, and how people were kind of really ignorant about the needs of various disabilities, the rights of people with disabilities, and how that can be really a second disability in itself. And I think that essentially one of the things that's needed is like a 3, 4, 5 year public information campaign on broadcast media and other media that have little short spots about what different disabilities are, what their needs are, what disability rights are, how they apply to all different segments of society, and what individual people can do in their everyday lives, not going out of their way much or imposing upon themselves or inconveniencing themselves much, to actually assist people with disabilities or to raise their voices or make them aware. And I really do think that there again, that it's kind of like the non-smoking campaigns that you used to see on TV or on the radio. And I really do think that type of advertising, brainwashing, if you will, needs to be put out to the public, and repeated messages for years in order to have it imprint into the public, the public mentality, the public consciousness of what disabilities are and what people's rights are. And I really think that that is a crucial step in terms of getting that day of equality here. And as far as I'm concerned, the federal government does licensing of radio, TV, and broadcasters, and I just feel that like allowing disability groups to make information commercials, and these type of commercials or advertisement, maybe the government doing some, and just handing that content over to broadcasters and saying, here's, as part of your broadcast license, you're required to do a certain amount of public service advertising. Here's some of your required advertising. We're going to be doing a 3 or 4 or 5 year long disability awareness public awareness campaign, and here you go. Here's here's part of your required public advertising, and get the broadcasters to do that. Another thing that's needed to get us from where we are now to a point of having more equality for people with disabilities is really better legal representation and legal services. There are really inadequate services and protections under the law for people with disabilities, and even even though there are organizations like Disability Rights of Texas, they're very limited in the types of cases they can take on, and because of their funding, they're just limited in the types of people they can serve. And I think until there's an adequate legal framework for people with disabilities to rely upon, that you can't, if you can't get your rights enforced under the law, they don't mean anything, And so I think that's really needed. I think there are different approaches to that. I mean, one suggestion that I've made is to basically require members of state bar associations to either do a certain amount of disability work pro bono, or chip in to increase their dues or whatever to help fund that. I mean, I really do. And really, with some of the way that the legal community behaves, as I mentioned before, I mean, I've found from my experience, and I would say that one of the largest impediments, one of the largest obstacles to equality for people with disabilities is the legal community itself. And until the legal community can get it right, I don't think we can expect the rest of society to get it right. These are the professionals under the law that should know how to respect the rights of people with disabilities. I've had attorneys or legal organizations treat me in ways that either deny me representation for some really blatant things, or argued or found that pretty blatant violations of my disability rights weren't really violations, or refused me accommodations. And until that changes, until there's really equal access to the law or the justice system, then you can't expect for people with disabilities to arrive at that day of equality. And there's kind of stopgap things out there to try to teach people with disabilities, various forms of disabilities, to be self-advocates. But in a way, that's only kind of a, a stopgap, kind of feeble safety net measure, because there's a common saying in the legal profession that an attorney who has themselves, attorney who represents themselves has a fool for a client. And you can't, if attorneys recognize that they, even with their professional skills, can't adequately represent themselves because of their personal involvement with a case or issue, because it's personal, how do they expect people with disabilities to effectively legally advocate? And just many times just providing this with forms or saying, well, here's what you do, it's really beyond the possibility or the capability of people with disabilities to do that. There really has to be a way to ensure that our rights are protected under the law, and until that happens, then to a great extent, the Americans with Disabilities Act isn't worth the paper it's printed on.